So what is statistics? Statistics is basically the science of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting data, even presenting it as well. And statistics can be broken down into two categories. On the left, we have descriptive statistics, and on the right, inferential statistics. So let's focus on descriptive statistics first, because you're going to learn that first before you learn inferential statistics. In descriptive statistics, you're basically organizing and summarizing data using numbers and graphs. For instance, you could summarize your data using a bar graph, which looks like this. Many of you have seen this in middle school or high school. You could even organize your data into a histogram. A histogram looks like a bar graph, but the bars are basically attached to each other. So that's the difference between a histogram and a bar graph. You can also organize your data into a pie chart. And this is very useful if you want to break it down into categories based on percentages. Now there's other graphs too. You can organize it using a line graph. You can also use tables to organize your data. You could use a frequency table, a frequency distribution table, and there's a lot of different ways of organizing it. And so that falls under descriptive statistics. You can also describe the shape of the graph. For instance, is the data symmetrical? Or is it skewed to the right? Or is the data skewed to the left? So that all falls under descriptive statistics. Now we can also describe our data using numbers. So for instance, under measures of central tendency, we have things like the mean, the median, and the mode. Now there's two types of means that you want to be familiar with. The first one is the sample mean, which is basically a sum of your sample data divided by the number of data items in your sample. The second is the population mean, which is also the sum divided by the number of data items in the population. And the mean is basically the average. The median is the middle number of a data set, and the mode is basically the number that occurs most frequently. So that's another way you could describe your data, using those types of numbers. You can also describe it in terms of range, variance, and standard deviation. Now let's move on to inferential statistics. So in this branch of statistics, that's when we take our sample data and we use it to make an inference or even draw a conclusion of the population. We can even use probability to determine how confident we can be that the conclusions that we make are correct. So let's use an example to illustrate this. Let's say in city XYZ, the population is 100,000. Now, and let's say we wish to make a test. How many people in this city like blue cars? How can we find the answer to this question? Now, it would be unreasonable for us to ask every citizen in this city if they like or if they prefer to purchase a blue car, because that means you have to ask 100,000 people, and that's just not practical. So instead, what we could do is take a small sample of the population, let's say 100 individuals, and ask them, hey, do you prefer to drive a blue car or do you prefer to drive a red car? And see who say yes. Now let's say if 20 out of the 100 people in our sample says yes. So that means that 20% of people prefer blue cars. This is based on our sample. That's our sample data. So that would fall under the realm of, would you say descriptive or inferential statistics? Which one? Now, this is basically a fact. We're presenting data. So 20 people out of 100 say they like blue cars. So that would be descriptive. Now, we can use that information to draw a conclusion about the population. We can say that 20% of the entire population may be within a 2% margin of error, like blue cars. In this case, because we're making an inference or we're drawing a conclusion, that will fall under inferential statistics. Now, there's something known as confidence intervals, which also falls under inferential statistics. So we could say that we are 95% certain or 95% confident that 20% of the individuals living in city XYZ prefer to drive blue cars within a 2% margin of error. Now, we can increase our confidence and get a better picture of the population data and how they like blue cars if we increase our sample size. So let's say we increase it to 1,000 instead of 100. So if we ask 1,000 people, do they like blue cars? And let's say the data is now different. Let's say 21% says yes to it within a 1% margin of error. So this value is going to be a better reflection of the population in response to their preference for blue cars because our sample size is bigger. So now we could say that 21% of the population prefer blue cars within a 1% margin of error. So by increasing the sample size, you can make a better prediction of the population and their preference for blue cars. And so that's a basic intro between descriptive statistics and inferential statistics. So hopefully this video gave you a better understanding of these two topics. So that's all I got. Thanks for watching.